You know how I feel. So let's get on with the show. The best of Rupert Pupkin. Jerry, I've sketched out this little outline in order to save you a little bit of time, okay? It's a little introduction. So close your eyes and imagine it's exactly 6 o'clock. You're standing in the wings, and we hear Lou Brown and the orchestra strike up your theme song.
And now, from New York, it's the Jerry Langford Show. With Jerry's guests, Richard Pryor, Ken Gazzara, Elizabeth Ashley, Carol Burnett,
And the comedy find of the year, making his television debut, Rupert Pupkin, the new king of comedy.
Rupert!
Hello.
Are you crazy?
Say
What's
hello
the matter
to
with you?
Jerry.
Ah,
Mom.
people are sleeping. Lower it.
Oh.
What's the matter with you?
Mom!
Take
Good to go? All right, thank you so much for being here. First of all, let me say this first and foremost. We're not here today because of what's going on over there. We're here today because you all are here. And so we are proud, we are glad that you're all here this morning. We're here primarily because of the threat that Donald Trump poses to the United States of America and to our democracy. We are, of course, grateful to have two brave officers, Michael Fanone and Harry Dunn, who defended our democracy and our Capitol against the violent mob that Trump incited on January 6, 2021 here with us. And of course, we are happy to have Robert DeNiro, a native New Yorker who can spot BS a mile away and isn't afraid to call it out. So the contrast here pretty much writes itself. As we speak, Donald Trump's somewhere fighting for himself, maybe taking a power nap. And we've seen him for weeks and for months now. We've seen the ramblings of an unhinged, power-hungry, self-centered man, both here at Mar-a-Lago, on Truth Social, wherever he may be. But the thing is, this isn't new for Donald Trump. It's how he spent his 4 years in the White House. It's how he spent every moment since he lost the 2020 election. And in 1 month, Americans are going to have an opportunity to witness in prime time the clear contrast between Donald Trump, who's a chaos agent, waging a self-obsessed campaign of revenge and retribution, go up against Joe Biden, who's a leader who fights for Americans every single day. As the president said when he challenged Trump to debate, the president has a list of things he'd like to talk to Trump about if Trump does in fact show up in Atlanta on June 27th. He wants to talk about why Donald Trump is the architect of the repeal of Roe v. Wade, why he wants to go even further in his second term, why he thinks the extreme state-level abortion bans are playing out brilliantly across the country. He wants to talk about Trump's embrace of political violence and the core threat he poses to our democracy. Lastly, he wants to talk about Trump's economic plans and how they'd make Trump and his rich friends richer at the expense of working families, just like he has his entire life. So that's what this campaign is going to be focused on and talking about over the course.
Hello, everybody. It's Dennis Dale. So what is it, June 1st? Good evening. It's Saturday. I'm still in SoCal. I'm leaving soon. Soon we'll be on our way to Seattle. And I'll probably be living out of a hotel for a couple of weeks at least while I look for a place. So I may not broadcast for a couple of weeks. Yeah, but once we get settled in Seattle, then this will all be about Seattle. We used to be about Portland. We came down here, didn't really broadcast much. But we get back to Seattle. I'm going to treat it like I treated Portland. I'm going to make a point of getting out and witnessing the craziness in Seattle. I used to live in Seattle. I lived there before I lived in Portland. And Seattle is nuttier even than Portland in many ways. Much bigger. So it'll be Portland writ large, I suspect. Of course, what I'm showing you is Robert De Niro's bizarre, not a press conference, I guess just a speech. Him and a couple of ex-DC cops, Capitol Police, two ex-Capitol Police officers. Yes, King Kush, back to the soggy wetlands. I can't wait. Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. I'm going to love having my motorcycle up there, too. Though I don't think you can split lanes there, which is going to be awful. But yes, yeah. Anyway, I got to find a place, and places are so expensive. And I don't want to. I'm moving up there for a job, and I don't want the damned rent to immediately start sucking up all the extra money I'm making, and not even make it worthwhile, to take a new job for more money and just spend it. Anyway, so we're looking at some options. May have a roommate lined up. I'm honestly thinking about doing some crazy things, like getting me one of those big Sprinter vans. I mean, I would do that if I could broadcast. If I could outfit a Sprinter van and find a place to go. Yeah, I might try that. I mean, the only thing I worry about is all your stuff is more vulnerable, Yeah, I mean, I just would worry about getting ripped off. Plus, I got a bike and a car and, stuff. Anyway. But anyway, we're going to be in Washington soon. And we'll see what it's all about. And we're talking about Robert De Niro. That clip I showed you was an excellent old movie. A lot of people haven't heard of it. It's called The King of Comedy. And it's where Robert De Niro showed his range. Usually you see him playing a tough guy. What a joke, right? Playing a tough guy, and he's been very good at playing the gangsters and whatnot. So good that he's still doing it. The ridiculous. Him and the absurd Al Pacino. Was it Al Pacino? And him that did with Scorsese, they said, oh, shit, we're all like 80 fucking years old, but we're going to do another one and pretend to be badasses. Right? He did The Irishman. He's beating people up, and he's like 80, and, and they can't even, they needed CGI, they needed stunt, they needed help. There's a scene I saw. I haven't seen the movie. I'd never go pay money to see a fucking Scorsese movie now. Or Robert De Niro in a film now. But I saw somebody post a clip of him beating a guy up, right? And it's like 80-year-old Robert De Niro beating the guy up. And it's so funny. He's got the short moves. He can't move. He's 80 fucking years old, right? He can't throw a punch. And they've got him like kicking the guy with his ridiculous little kicks. And it's so ridiculous looking. But anyway. You can go mushroom hunting up there, says Kush. Elon is your satellite friend. Yeah, I'm looking into it. I'm looking into it. I mean, I would like to do something where I like go into work for the week and then go in the woods for the weekends, But, anything crazy, because I don't have, I won't have family up there. I won't have anybody else I have to take care of necessarily. So, I'm getting older and I haven't done anything nuts. I haven't lived any sort of crazy life yet, and I think, why not? Just do it, Dennis. Go live in the woods if you can. Anyway, so Robert De Niro, the bizarre character, Robert De Niro, and he's going to give this speech, and so the Biden campaign has hired him as if he's this fucking star, as if he's got star power. And the thing about De Niro is, I noticed this a long time ago. I mean, like 10 years at least ago. I mean, there was some movie that came out. I think it's that fucking movie Ronin. You've seen the movie Ronin? That's like I'm 15 years old by now. The movie Ronin, which should be good because it's got him, it's got that French guy, what's his name? The tall French guy from The Professional, Leon the Professional. Everybody loves him. He's great. A couple of other good actors. But it's fucking ridiculous. Because one thing I tire of is all these movies about badasses. I just get so sick of it. Especially movies about gangsters, movies about bikers, or just anything about gangsters or bikers. The worst thing is, YouTube channels are all over the place now. So you've got multiple YouTube channels of guys who were supposedly ex-mob guys, and they're telling stories about the mob. Like we haven't been fed this horse shit. This is all part of the gaslighting, people, to keep you like dull and sated and just dumbed down. But one thing I don't believe are half the fucking wise guy stories, right? From these old fucking guys who've got a gig telling gullible idiots, or they've got a YouTube channel and they've got gullible subscribers who are going to tell these stories about that are supposed to impress you about how ruthless, supposedly, the ex-mob boss that they worked for was. I just know. I mean, without any evidence, but you just know. For one thing, they're ex-mobsters. If they're real mobsters, they're liars. If they're not real mobsters, well, they're liars. So the stories are going to be half bullshit, right? And bikers are worse. I mean, bikers are probably generally tougher than the average dude. But I get the impression in that hierarchy of badass characters that we've been romanticizing stupidly for years in this country, that bikers are actually kind of low on the tough guy scale, and they're not really that scary. Because I know one thing, man, I see guys on Harleys all the time, they're not fucking scary. The guys who wear the Mongols jackets, I used to see them in Seattle. We never see Hell's Angels for some reason. Some of them look pretty scary. But, generally, no, of course not. Bikers are bullshit artists. Anyway, I got off on a tangent. What I was going to say, in the movie Ronin, I think it was, there was some movie that came out. And it's DeNiro, and, God, he's not much older than I am now, but he's older. And he's in the movie doing his bad, tough guy routine. And I'm watching him, and I pay a lot of attention to the voice. I pay a lot of attention to the voice of actors. I think it makes a huge difference how they sound and how their voice, obviously, right? Well, the guy's voice was gone he had the same voice, the same De Niro voice and accent, but the energy in his delivery was fucking gone. And he's delivering his lines, and he's doing this thing which happens to old guys. Or maybe he just wasn't fucking trying in this movie. But he does this thing where the energy just kind of lags in the middle of sentences. And he has pauses in the middle of sentences, or pauses that feel like exhaustion pauses. Like the guy was not projecting any energy. And that's all he was before, was just this guy who could really do intense, very intense guys. Anyway, the guy's been washed up for years. But, obviously he was great once. But he's also a weird guy, and as people have been pointing out, now that he's decided to stick his head up very stupidly, the Biden administration, they can't do better. They've got all the fucking celebrities on their side. They're trotting out 80-year-old Robert De Niro, who, like I said, is a low-energy guy now. And we're seeing also, and you'll see in the speech, he's not an impressive dude. He appears to be very stupid. What's funny, though, he gives a speech, and it's so awful, he doesn't really appear to know anything, right? And he's worked on it. It's written remarks, and he's hitting points that you can see that he's worked on a speech. He's thought about it, and he's come out with a speech. It's like the worst thing in the world. It's so unconvincing, and I'm asking myself as I watch it, wait a minute, you're Robert De Niro, you couldn't get anybody to write a speech for you, right? You've got, if they still had Rolodexes, you would have a Rolodex full of people who could write you a banger. But apparently he wrote his own, or maybe he's just such an asshole that he actually can't or won't call people up and ask for that favor. But anyway, they've trotted him out. Tired old Robert De Niro, and it's kind of sad. We're going to talk about Steve Saylor later. This kind of relates kind of to Steve Saylor, the kind of sad what's become of you thing. But unlike Steve, who's still a good guy and everything, almost once, I think that De Niro has never really been much of a man. Something you've been hearing about recently, now that he's stuck his head out and decided to go in for Biden, is that he was arrested like 15 years ago in France, questioned for something like 4 hours by French police, in connection with supposedly underage prostitutes being trafficked. Epstein-style shit in France, in freaky France, where, right, if they're going to go and arrest a celebrity for, for prostitution in France, it must have been pretty bad, right? Who knows if there's anything there, obviously, but it must have been pretty fucking bad, like, very young girls or some shit. But anyway, the guy's never done interviews. He's never been impressive. You've never seen interviews, right? Can any of you guys think of a clip of him on Carson or something you've seen? I don't think I've ever seen him in interviews. I'm sure he's done them, but he's one of those actors who's a really great actor who doesn't appear to be much of a presence off stage or off screen. And that one of these guys who shrinks. And apparently he's really short because everybody's showing these pictures of him in a movie where they have him wearing platform shoes as he's walking next to Pacino, who's another munchkin, to make him a little taller than fucking Pacino, who I hate. Just Pacino's been awful, forever. He was great in Godfather. He was great in Dog Day Afternoon, but I don't know if you guys remember Dog Day Afternoon. That's the one where he's shouting, Attica, Attica on the street. He got so full of that, he decided, he did so well in Dog Day Afternoon, being this over-the-top character, that's all he did, right? And then you got all those movies where he's shouting, "You're out of order" at the judge, and then that horrible movie where he's a blind ex-soldier. I haven't even seen the whole movie. I've seen like pieces of it here and there. Horrible. Fuck, man. I just want to hunt out whoever was behind it. I haven't even seen it. It could be good. I don't care. Just the sight of the marquee and the few bits I've seen of Scent of a Woman makes me just know it's horrible and that the people involved with it are bad people. Anyway, to get back to it, here's Robert De Niro revealing what a small man he is, what a small-minded man he is, really. I saw a clip of him on Bill Maher. And of course, he's sitting there one-on-one with Bill Maher because he can't sit with a bunch of other people. That would be too much. How Maher's format is usually like 4 people sitting around or something. But it's just him and Bill Maher. And he's talking about how awful Donald Trump is. And it's like this speech, like there's zero substance to it. He can't even hit the cliche talking points. He can't even manage that. But it's funny, and he's trying to say about what's so bad about Trump, and you could fake it. You see people, Rachel Maddow's out there faking it every day and fooling everybody. She's fooling your aunt every night, right? But he can't even do that. And he sums it up by saying, I just don't want to feel like that again. If Trump wins the next election, I just don't want to feel like that again. And of course, Maher doesn't challenge him. What? That's it? That's your summation? I just don't want to feel that way again? It's telling, right? And De Niro's too dim-witted to realize, he's too dim-witted to self-reflect and think, yeah, it's really just my gut reaction, and examine that. And he's too dim-witted as well to hide it and not, and pretend there's substance to his rejection of Trump, who I'm not voting for, by the way, because he's horribly compromised at this point. He's so pro-Israel. I'm not voting for anybody. I'm not going to degrade myself voting for anybody. But anyway, we'll talk about that later, maybe. Here he is, Biden's big star, their big ringer.
Course of the next month, we're going to make sure that Trump has to answer for all of the above and for his extremism on the debate stage. That started last week when we launched our new ad, narrated by Mr. De Niro, which underscores Trump's increasingly unhinged and dangerous quest for power.
It's so funny. So they're out here. I guess the big black dude, the big bald brother, is one of the ex-cops. And right behind the bald brother speaking, there's Michael Fanone, F-A-N-O-N-E, Fanone or Fanone. He was a DC cop. These two guys are DC cops who are trying to cash in by running for office now. You know, and hopefully they'll both lose. They're both idiots. But this Fanon guy, he's this guy. He's Iranian. I don't even remember. There was somebody said he was born in Iran. Somebody said no, he's born here, but he's Iranian, and he's got tattoos. He's got web tattoos. He's got the spider web tattoos on the elbow, on the neck. I mean, like that. If that doesn't like disqualify you, you know, what's more cringe than a spider web tattoo? Why would you get it removed? Why would you not just get it removed at this point? I mean, they were D Class A like fucking 20 years ago. Anyway, Fanon is the suspect character, and a lot of people think he's just this fad, and they think his Iranian ancestry means that he's of that class of Iranians who are actually anti-Ayatollah, pro-Zionist, and there's a lot of them working in the, you know, state.
And we're not going to let our foot off the gas. You'll be hearing and seeing a lot from our campaign as we bring the states of the election directly to the voters who are going to decide it. It's simple. Trump poses a unique and growing threat to our fundamental rights and our freedoms, our very democracy.
And as they speak, right, there's a group apparently nearby, and I think they're shouting at them, or they're outside the Trump courthouse. This guy says, oh, we're not here for that. But obviously they've come to a corner across the street from the courthouse, district court in Manhattan, where Trump is about to be found guilty of these ridiculous charges. So obviously they're piggybacking on that, but they're pretending like, no, we're just here. And there's a group of people nearby yelling, and I don't know if they're yelling at them. They will be shouting at them later, or if they're just outside the courthouse demonstrating and shouting. But these poor bastards, as you see, are standing here, and they keep looking warily over at the crowd, the hostile crowd that's going to come and hand their ass to them any minute now.
And our economy. The threat is crystal clear today. It will remain crystal clear tomorrow, and it will be crystal clear on the debate stage in Atlanta on June 27th. So now I'm going to pause and turn it over to Robert DeNiro.
Thank you. I mean, this is really, even these people over here are kind of crazy. It's really crazy, and this thing, Donald Trump has created this. He should be telling them not to do this, but he's just, he wants to.
See, look how unfocused this goddamn idiot.
Total chaos.
Look, he just, you know, he's a geezer too. We're all geezers. God, I'm getting close, and I don't want to become a geezer. Please, pray for me, people. Pray for me that this doesn't happen. I want to be sharp. I want to be the 80-year-old guy who's still sharp, you know? I don't look like hell. I'll forget things all the time, but I just don't want to be this fucking dumb. You know, this ridiculous ranting old man. He doesn't even know. You know, you go in there, give your speech, and he just immediately starts, what are these whippersnappers doing over here? Look at these fucking people.
Which he's succeeding in some areas and places to do.
He's like picking up a conversation, mid-conversation, that you haven't been having with the people. You know? For one thing, you should say, hey, you know me, I'm Robert DeNiro. I mean, and use your fucking voice and pick up your chin. Jeez. Anyway,
beside all that, this is my neighborhood, downtown New York City. I grew up here and feel at home in these streets. I feel comfortable.
He feels so comfortable. He's the guy who never goes out on the street. There's a clip of him recently where the car service was supposed to pick him up on the sidewalk after he left some restaurant or something, right? And the car service went to the wrong corner. And there's De Niro surrounded by paparazzi. You know, they instantly found him, descended on him. And he's on the phone, like hunched down, saying, where are you? He's like whining, bitching at the driver. Where are you? Where the fuck are you? You're supposed to be here on whatever. And I'm here. I'm surrounded. You know, he's a guy who doesn't walk the streets. He goes from his fucking penthouse, right, to the best restaurants or wherever the fuck this weirdo goes. You know, he barely walks the streets.
The Twin Towers fell just over here just over there.
Oh,
This
that's
part
great.
of the city was like a ghost town. But we vowed we would not allow terrorists to change our way of life.
Oh my
And
God.
we started the Tribeca Festival to bring people back. I love this city. I love this city. I don't want to destroy it. Donald Trump wants to destroy not
That's
only
funny.
the city.
So that's funny. So he's going to go that route, right? And Donald Trump, who's Donald Trump? He was a real estate developer who literally built much of the city, you know? Right? He's a guy who put up many of the towers and stuff around there, you know? And he's going to go that route. Okay.
But the country, and eventually he could destroy the world. But we vowed we would not allow terrorists to.
And he can't even remember a few lines, right? He's going to have to look down and read directly from his notes, right? Yeah, the big goon behind him, the big brother behind him, both of these guys flanking him here. These are DC cops who are running for office. Assholes, basically. Yeah, they're trying to, cash in on the January 6th nonsense by running for office. And here they are with him. And it's funny, too. You can see these guys, they're dividing their time between looking warily at the crazy MAGA crowd nearby to watching DeNiro with looks of sort of disappointment, like, fuck, you're Robert De Niro. I mean, oh, fuck. Come on, man, pick it up, right? They can see that De Niro's flubbing his speed.
I owe this city a lot. And that's why it's so weird that Donald Trump is just across the street. Because he doesn't belong in my city. I don't know where he belongs, but he certainly doesn't belong here. We New Yorkers used to tolerate him when he was just another grubby real estate hustler masquerading as a big shot. A two-bit playboy lying his way into the tabloids, pretending to be a spokesperson for himself. He was...
What? Pretending to be a spokesperson for himself? God, that was bad. That was a bad line. By the way, you're a fucking actor. You've been pretending to be a tough guy your whole life. You've been pretending to be a sharp, smart guy, like in Heat. Heat, I didn't want to like Heat. It had Pacino, it had De Niro, it was so packed with fucking stars, it was so over the top. But Heat is a great movie. Yeah, got to give it to him. He's great in Heat. But in Heat, he plays this super sharp guy, right? He's not that guy. It's amazing how... Because I don't think actors are all idiots. I don't think that. I think they probably have above average intelligence. They're crazy because they're actors. They're more often nutty and maybe immature and have psychological issues. Maybe as much about the life they lead as anything else. But I don't think they're all dummies. Maybe the most beautiful actresses are often dummies because they're so beautiful. That's really what got them there. But most of them are above average intelligence. Except for fucking Robert De Niro.
calling it as himself for himself to fool the press into inflating his net worth. But this
You can tell the crowd is getting to him.
We make room for clowns.
Do we?
We have them all over the city. People who do crazy things in the street, we tolerate it. It's
Where's
part
he
of
going with
the
this?
city. It's part of the culture. But
Okay.
not a person like Trump who will eventually run the country. That does not work, and we all know that.
Jesus, he's made
Anyway,
some
we make
fucking
room for
quick
clowns,
notes,
each
and
his
he's
own.
working.
But no one takes him. Or
Look at the poor guys behind him. They know this is not. They want it. They want him to pump. They're going to speak, right? They want him to get these. Whoever's out there watching, nobody's watching. I like the guy on the right there. He's like, what the fuck? The security guys are like, what the fuck? He's supposed to pump up the crowd. I don't know if there's a crowd there. It's just probably press standing around. Obviously, the crowd's going to be hostile. But those guys, those poor bastards behind him, are like, shit, man. We got Robert De Niro, and he sucks.
They take him seriously now, of course. But around the country, people who didn't know him, as we did, started to support him. They bought into his bullshit. Trump bought their votes
He
with
keeps
outrageous
pausing.
lies and empty promises. He got the most religious evangelicals to applaud a sinner who bragged about sexual assault. And who, just a couple of blocks from here, a jury found him liable for sexual abuse.
Look at those guys behind
Somehow he
him.
even
This
got
sucks.
self-styled patriots to support a man who called for terminating the Constitution.
One guy checking his
and on
speech.
January 6th, rallied an angry mob to threaten democracy, leaving death and destruction in its wake.
God.
That's why I needed to be involved and wanted to be involved in the new Biden-Harris ad, because it shows the violence of Trump and reminds us that he'll use violence against anyone who stands in the way of his megalomania and greed. But it's a coward's violence. You think Trump ever threw a punch himself? Or
Don't
took
start.
one?
Have
Guy
you?
ran and hid in the White House bunker when there were protesters outside?
Oh,
No
God, this
way.
is...
He doesn't get...
So he's going to bring that up, right? He ran and hid in the bunker when there were protests outside. What he's bringing up is the fact that people were so deranged, right, that when Trump was elected, nothing had happened. Trump hadn't had time to do anything. They rioted at the White House just because they didn't like the fact that the guy won an election, right? They rioted. He just talked about January 6th, and oh my God, the democracy, they're going to fucking kill democracy. And then he brings this up, and if anybody who hears it knows anything, they knows what he's referring to was an actual riot seeking to overturn an election, but even those idiots knew they weren't going to actually run Trump out of town. But had they got inside, they probably would have heard him if they could, you know. He's talking about something that's just like January 6th, but I think January 6th, which I would describe as a riot, is more understandable than the fucking tantrum they threw at the White House, right? Just because Trump obviously won a fair election, because, Trump was in no position to cheat his way into the election. But in 2020, I didn't know if the election was stolen outright from Trump. But I just laugh when I hear people, everybody's straining for respectability, like our old friend Luke will say, oh no, just unequivocally, if the election wasn't stolen, we know it wasn't stolen, you might as well believe in flying saucers. Well, maybe that's not a good example now, but that just unequivocally no. Really? They spent 4 years just pulling out, like I've always told you, the real crime was that they spent 4 years disenfranchising you, which would be every bit as bad as cheating in the election, which probably goes on every fucking 4 years, probably by both sides, right? But they spent 4 years disenfranchising you if you were a Trump voter by coming up with hoax after hoax, trying to get him out of office with high officials, military officials, chiefs of staff, the Joint Chiefs of Staff, and other people simply refusing to carry out policy or orders, right? And all of these people getting together and convoying, talking about how they're going to do this, right? And then the election comes around, and all the shit that was above the surface that's supposedly legal was bad enough. I mean, it doesn't have to be illegal to be wrong, people. And, of course, there's that notorious Time magazine article out there. Everybody should read it. It's from right after the 2020 election, and it's celebratory about how we all got together and made sure Trump wouldn't win again, right? And their cluelessness, they don't know not to say the quiet part out loud. We all got together, media and, deep state, whatever you want to call it, all the institutions, right, got together and talked about how we would prevent this guy winning the election. So all that happens, and then you want to say, yeah, but unequivocally, no, there was no actual cheating in, ballot stuffing or any other bullshit. And even you can see, we saw them go right up to the edge of that with all the COVID nonsense. Right? Yeah, let's have mail-in ballots everywhere because they know that benefits them. That always benefits the Democratic side. They've said for years, and I've always found it plausible, that there's a Democrats always get the cheating. I believe they're both sides cheating, but I believe the Democrats, being the old party of machine politics, being the party of, frankly, of minority voters, of black Southern preachers busing people to the polls and other such things, they've always enjoyed like a 3 to 5% advantage in the cheating department. They always get the edge in the cheating. Because they're just better situated than the Republicans to do that. Not because they're better, not that the Republicans aren't bad too, but anyway. You saw that, right? All that was obviously geared, and I think the Time magazine article makes mention of this, all that was obviously geared to help Biden, right? And so you're going to tell me, okay, yeah, all that happened, but there was no, actual ballot stuffing, they didn't rig the voting machines, Giuliani's hair dye was dripping. So, no, Dennis, that's crazy. Fuck you. What's wrong with you people? Fuck you. What, you like a bunch of fucking women? You're just worthless. You're like fucking Jello people, right? Why aren't you mad? You don't have to like Trump. I hate him now. I fucking hate him now. He's so pro-Israel. I don't trust him. I'm not voting. But still, let's just talk the truth for fuck's sake, Anyway.
Blood on his hands. No, he doesn't. He directs the mob to do his dirty work for him by making a suggestion, an inference. And his gang grovels and follows his obvious order.
What?
It's no surprise that the murder rate and other violent crimes peaked under Trump. And
wait, holy fuck! Holy fuck, right? BLM, you don't remember what happened? Holy fuck. And they're filing under Biden, are they? Jesus.
Biden. And now he's...
Right? The fentanyl crisis is out of control. Oh, fuck. Anyway, let's let him talk. Let him talk, Dennis.
To attack U.S. citizens. That's the tyrant.
Come on, old geezer.
That's the tyrant he's telling us he'll be. And believe me, he means it. When Trump ran in 2016, it was like a joke. This buffoon running for president. No, never could happen. We'd forgotten the lessons of history that showed us other clowns who weren't taken seriously until they became vicious
Hitler.
dictators.
Oh, shut the
With
fuck
Trump,
up already.
We have a second chance. And no one is laughing now.
Look at these poor guys behind him. They know he's clunking this fucking speech. Look at these poor bastards.
We don't want to wake up after the election saying, what, again? My God, what the hell have we done? We can't have that happen again.
There he is again. I don't want to feel that way again.
It's a good time to reflect on how Americans fought and died so that we may enjoy the freedoms guaranteed to us by a democratic government.
I don't want to hear that shit from anybody anymore.
Said, of the people, by the people, for the people, shall not perish from the earth. Under Trump, this kind of government will perish from the earth.
God,
I don't mean to scare you. No, wait, maybe I do mean to scare you. If Trump
okay,
maybe I can. You can kiss these freedoms
fuck.
we all take for granted.
He's one of the best actors of his generation, right? Like I said, he has access to writers, and the guy can't write his own speech. He can't give his own speech. He can't fucking think. I don't mean to scare you. Well, maybe I do mean to scare you. That's like, it's comic.
And elections, forget about it. That's over. That's done. If he gets in, I can tell you right now.
Did he prepare?
He will never
Bill?
leave. He will never leave.
Such bullshit. Like, what do you mean we know that? He left once already. What's he gonna do? What fucking power would he actually have? That's why the 2020 fucking charges are such a joke. Like he was gonna stay. We saw the whole establishment was rallied against him, right? How was he gonna manage to stay? He was gonna get a couple of generals on his side and hold out in the fucking Oval Office like Scarface? No. It's not possible. It would not be possible. You dumb fuck. God damn, how are you so stupid, man?
Will never leave.
Never?
What does that mean? Is that the country we want to live in? Do we want him running this country and saying, I'm
God,
not
look at
leaving
Fanon.
until
He knows
you
this is
life?
shit. Look at the big man. He's like, oh, fuck, dude, come on.
I hope this new ad campaign reaches outside the bubble to remind
Now this somebody set up a car alarm.
what a danger he is to our lives.
To our
This is
lives.
not a threat.
We will die.
This is a reality.
Yeah.
And that's why I've joined the Biden-Harris campaign, because the only way to preserve our freedom.
He's literally saying, if he's elected, we'll all die. Jesus Christ, you fucking mush-brained old fool. Like I said, guys, I'm not that far away from being an old fart, too. Lord, please, please preserve my brain. I mean, I'll accept the body going, accept, everything else. Just leave the mind sharp. Just leave the mind sharp, however long I have, right? A few years, a few decades, however long you give me, just don't take the mind before the body fails. Please, God, don't let me be Robert De Niro.
And hold on to our humanity is to vote for Joe Biden for president. Really. We don't have a choice. On January 6th, while
Somebody get that car.
lawmakers despicably tried to keep the loser Trump,
Yeah,
the White
that
House.
such a good phrase. I had to repeat
inspired
it.
insurrectionists stormed the Capitol. Brave men and women from law enforcement put their lives on the line to defend this country. Our democracy. They are the true heroes. These guys are the true heroes. They stood and put their lives on the line for these lowlives, for Trump.
For these low lives. So he's talking about Trump supporters. They're low lives. Do you realize there's millions of them? It's like over half of the people who are going to vote have said they will vote for Trump. These low lives. Look at those poor bastards. Look at Fanon. Look at that. They just know this is shit. The poor motherfuckers. They had no idea this is how it was going to play out. They thought, oh, we got Robert De Niro. This is the picture here. This poor bastard.
They lied under oath.
They lied under oath. Who lied under oath?
So somebody says they lied under oath. So there's hostiles in the crowd standing around. And first De Niro says they lied under oath. He thinks the guy is talking about Trump or Trump's people. And then he realizes, oh, wait, he's talking about those two idiots behind him who lied under oath in regards to supposedly the January 6th prosecutions. Where people are sitting in prison for like 10, 20 years for a riot. And this asshole is talking about we must preserve our democracy.
What are you telling me?
Those two traitors behind you.
Excuse me?
Those two traitors behind you.
They lied under oath?
That's right.
What are you saying?
You already said that. He said they lied under oath. So De Niro has no idea. De Niro doesn't even read the papers, apparently. So, he has no counter because he hasn't even heard the charge before, but it's out there. I believe it, but I don't know. I haven't got into it. But I believe that these assholes would lie under oath. At least these two ambitious fellows here would have lied under oath. I believe the prosecutions were total bullshit. But poor De Niro, he doesn't even know what the guy's talking about. And the guy's telling him, those two heroes there lied under oath. And instead of like ignoring the guy and moving on with his speech or having some comeback because he's actually done his homework, he's going to actually keep asking, what are you saying? What are you saying?
They're traitors. I don't even know how to deal with you, my friend.
You know shit. You don't know how to deal with them because you don't know what the fuck you're talking about.
To deal with you. They stood there. They didn't have to. And there were other
They did have to. It was their job. They had to stand there. What do you mean they didn't have to?
probably were in with them a little bit too, and they found a way to get around. Not these guys. They stood there and fought.
They
For us,
fought?
for you.
Did they literally fight people? Did they literally fight people? I don't believe it. Look at the poor bastards. Like, this guy is talking nonsense. I don't want to go up there and have somebody ask me about fighting valiantly when, you know, all I did was stand a post or some shit.
No, they fought for you, buddy. You're able to stand right here now.
Oh. See, if they didn't turn away those January 6 protesters, we wouldn't even be allowed to have our little meeting on the corner because we'd be living in, you know, Trump's Handmaid's Tale / Hitler's Germany / whatever.
They are the true heroes. I'm honored to be with these two heroes today, from former Capitol Police Officer Harry Dunn and former
Harry Dunn from fucking Dumb and Dumber. Harry Dunn, how do you do? Just when I think you can't get any dumber, you go and totally redeem yourself, Bobby. Keep going, dude.
Police Officer Michael Fanone.
Yeah, Fanone. That's so funny. Fanone sounds like, you know, Fanuc. It sounds like the Italian epithet meaning homosexual or something. Oh, you Fanone, yeah. All right, big boy. And that car is still going. Still going.
I came here today to remind Americans of what Donald Trump is.
Holy shit. Oh, God, he's putting... I know he's playing up that voice. I came here because I'm a hicklib.
And the violence that he unleashed on all Americans.
Americans.
2021.
That's not your real voice, I bet. Poor bastard. Look.
For 2 decades, I was a D.C. police officer serving the citizens of the District of Columbia, primarily working in narcotics.
You're 20 years in D.C. and you still talk like a hick? No, dude, you're phony. Look at DeNiro in the background scowling. Poor dumb bastard. I feel sorry for you, Bobby.
On January 6, 2021, I heard distress calls coming from fellow police officers on the Capitol as thousands of Trump supporters rushed them and brutally assaulted members of law enforcement. That day, I, like
what's going on with this dude?
Hundreds of other D.C. police officers put on a uniform and responded to the Capitol to assist our brothers and sisters in law enforcement, defending the Capitol from a violent, armed mob.
Armed? Wait, whoa, nobody was armed. Armed? Not a single one of them had a gun. People are fond of pointing that out repeatedly.
Supporters. These supporters were fueled by Trump's
I don't trust
lies
this motherfucker.
and the lies of his surrogates. Lies that the 2020 election was stolen.
Come on.
Those same lies have been spewed by Donald Trump and his surrogates about what happened to me and so many other police officers on January 6, 2000.
He's acting very nervous.
That day, I was brutally assaulted. I was pulled from the police line by a man named Albuquerque Head, a Trump supporter who later pled guilty to his violent assault on me. While being restrained by the violent mob, I was beaten. An individual named Kyle Young tried to strip me of my firearm, while chants of kill him with his own gun were echoed by other members of the crowd.
That does sound pretty bad.
At that time,
the black dude in the back is not the dude who shot, I forget the woman's name. No, that guy just sort of blended back into the bushes like the Homer Simpson meme. Of course, was not charged, but yeah.
Thomas Civic, a man from Buffalo, New York, stripped me of my badge and my police radio, my lifeline.
God, you're a
to call for
bitch.
help
Gave
from
up your
other
badge?
officers. All the while, I continued to be beaten. And then, struck with a taser on my neck by Daniel Rodriguez, another Trump supporter who also pled guilty to his violent assault on me. All 4 of these individuals are self-admitted Trump supporters.
Self-admitted
All 4
Trump.
of them committed violent assault on law enforcement.
Like the Trump support is the crime, right?
I'm just one representative of the hundreds of police officers that were assaulted that day by Donald Trump supporters, inspired by his lies. The lies that continue to this day to inspire my fellow Americans to turn against their fellow Americans, to turn against police officers.
What's wrong with this guy? He's acting really
At the end of
nervous.
the day, this election is about Donald Trump.
Or is this an
and
act?
his vision
He's acting like
for
he's
the office of the
wound
President
up.
of the United States. Not as a public servant who answers to the elected.
I think
to
the
people who
shouting
elect
is
him,
distracting
but
these
as an
poor bastards.
authoritarian who answers to and serves only himself.
He answers and serves Satan. Satan, I say.
Ashley Babbitt was murdered, an unarmed veteran.
Thank you. Ashley
Morning.
Babbitt. Somebody mentioned Ashley Babbitt. See, Fanone knows enough not to engage, right? You're not going to win the exchange, you know. Don't be a dummy like DeNiro and say, what? Repeat that? When you have nothing. Repeat that charge that I have nothing to counter with.
If January 6th didn't happen, we wouldn't be here right now. I'd still be at work, working at the United States Capitol. I appreciate the words by Mr. DeNiro, Officer Fanone, but anytime I get an opportunity to acknowledge, address, and thank the men and women of the Capitol Police and the Metropolitan Police Department who served that day to protect our democracy, to protect each other, to make sure everybody got to go home that night. That's what we fought for that day.
I could never run for fucking office. You have to get up and do this bullshit, right? But I know I'd be a lot better at it than any of these 3 men, including the Academy Award winning actor.
The fight for a lot of us didn't end on January 6th, that evening when we went home. The fight still continues now. What happened that day was an attempt to overthrow an election. Donald Trump is the greatest threat to our democracy and the safety of communities across the country today.
Now he's just going to go directly to
He has
reading.
encouraged and continue to encourage political violence.
He was at least not looking at his notes, you know. If you have to look down at what you're reading the whole time, that's just massively deleterious to your presentation.
We've been called traitors just today. We were all called traitors on January 6th for doing our job. And yes, we protected Republicans. We protected Democrats alike. It's not about the story that we don't agree with. Political violence is never acceptable. But you have a presidential candidate, that champions it, that encourages it, that supports it. We cannot have that. Officer Sicknick died the day after January 6th. They said it was because of a stroke, but the events of January 6th caused it. His father said it best. Charles Sicknick. Trump is the reason why my son is dead. Trump does whatever will get him votes and helps Donald Trump. He is about himself. He calls the criminals who attacked our Capitol patriots. He calls the men and women who died serving and protecting this country suckers and losers. He constantly echoes the words of dictators and invokes the language of Nazi Germany, embracing political violence, pledging to rule as a dictator on day one. Those aren't our talking points. Those aren't left news talking points. He said it.
Yeah, but did he do it? Hey, Jim. Yeah. I do believe that Sicknick, if that guy Sicknick had a stroke the next day, it had to be related to the stress of the day. I do believe that. But, you know.
Americans need to wake up. This is not a drill.
Yes, King. They keep leaving out the BLM thing, and I say this all the time. And because the world is stupid, and all of us, even the smarter people out there, have learned to think in like big, blocky binaries. January 6th never would have happened if we didn't have the BLM riots. It never would have happened. And I realized that because I witnessed the dynamic between the Back the Blue people, the Patriot Prayer guys here, not here, up in Portland area, coming to the BLM rallies and mixing it up with the BLM guys. And I witnessed the BLM rioting, in Portland, and how the cops at first, they treated it like they always treated riots. They come out in force and they try to force you off the street. But, within the first couple of weeks, right, they were pulled back, and, it settled into this. Rioting became legal in Portland, and it was legal in Seattle, and it was legal in places, those places like, those blue cities like that, parts of New York. Basically rioting was legal. In Portland, and people don't believe this, but I swear to God, because I was monitoring it, every day through the summer, every night was a riot. Every night was at least a small riot somewhere in the city, So anyway, January 6th never would have happened if those guys, all those Trump, let's face it, they were fools. They were fools for getting involved in it. They were fools for letting themselves maybe be lured into it by the feds even, right? But they all thought rioting's legal now. They all thought the rules had changed. Well, the rules had not changed for them, They thought, though, that because BLM got to do what they did, we get to do, whatever the fuck we want at the Capitol. But people don't care. That doesn't seem to make... But it is, to me, it makes all the difference in the world.
DeNiro said he's not trying to scare you. When I just unsuccessfully ran for office, a lot of people that I met out there said they were afraid. They're scared to see what another Trump presidency looks like.
What?
I try to pride myself in...
Yeah, I guess I'm afraid too, because the first Trump presidency was absolute chaos. But I didn't see Trump producing the chaos. I saw the chaos coming from the other side. Like I said, BLM was largely encouraged and maybe outright orchestrated from the top, from the start, because it was a way to get Trump. Remember, it happened in 2020. In the summer ahead of the election, right? It was May 29th. I was there for the first night of it. I saw it. I saw it begin in Portland, and Portland already had been gone. Portland started doing little riots and little disturbances on election day. The day after the election was the first riot in Portland. I forget now which one I got arrested at. The one that got big. And like I said, the cops, that was 2016. They were still enforcing the law. You couldn't just riot. And I don't remember if it was election day. I think it was inauguration day riot when I got arrested. 100 of us got arrested, kettled on Broadway in Portland. That was the day. And arrested and spent the night with them. Anyway, they had been doing that shit already. May 29th. Late, I don't want to say about my shitty job at the time, but I'm driving home through downtown at 1 a.m. And I'm driving down 4th Street past the police station. There's a police station, there's a federal courthouse, and then there's the Justice Center, which is the courthouse and jail for the city. And I see them gathered around the Justice Center, what they call the so-called Justice Center. And 3rd Street is the back side. It's not really the front where the cops come and go. So you could just sit up there on the steps, right? And they were all collected on the back side of the Justice Center. It's a tall building, and, it's like, maybe 12, 15 floors. And up toward the top is the jail. They're on the steps, which would later become the scene of all the rioting. There's about, 24 of them, ragged people. And back then, it wasn't like they see someone with a camera out. They just assume you're friendly. And even me, walking up like a middle-aged guy with my phone, it was cool. Nobody was even fucking with me. But there they were, and I didn't think anything of it. I barely knew about this George Floyd thing that had happened. And there they were, and they had already spray painted some slogans along the short stub wall behind the Justice Center, right? And they told me the story, and I sat there nodding with a concerned look like I'm sympathetic. And they told me about what's going on, and they were, ACAB. I didn't even know what ACAB meant, ACAB. I didn't even know what it meant yet. But anyway, I saw that. I go on home. I did think it was weird that they were getting away with that right in front of the police station, like I said. Backside of the station, but, obviously the police see them there. There are cameras all around it. But anyway, that was day one, early morning hours, May 29th. And from then on, every fucking day, literally every day that summer. And beyond that, really, was rioting. And it's, like I said, it's as if the rules had changed, and these poor dumb bastards who went out for J6 thought, in fact, the rules had changed. J6 was just a riot, and all this bullshit about it was an insurrection. It just pains me that I live in such a stupid country. That even all these dummies who watch MSNBC or have Trump derangement syndrome, fine. They should be smart enough to realize calling this an insurrection is a little bit silly.
Having some type of way to make people feel comfortable, saying some kind of a word,
please hurry up, brother.
It's going to be okay. I couldn't say that to those individuals. I couldn't say it's going to be okay. Everything's going to be all right. We can't count on
this guy thinks he's going to go all the way to the top. He's running for office. He thinks he's going to be like fucking mayor or governor or president someday. Thank you. All right, go on.
We have time for a few questions that folks have.
Here we go.
Why did the Biden campaign decide to come here today?
Because you all are here. We've been incessantly covering this day in and day out, and we want to remind the American people ahead of the next debate, of the first debate on June 27th, of the unique, persistent, and growing threat that Donald Trump poses to the American people and to our democracy. So since you all are here, we're here communicating that message, as we will do day in, day out until the debate in Atlanta.
Can the two officers please spell the name on
Harry, Harry, Dunn, Dunn.
Harry Dunn. No, your name is not Harry Dunn. Stop it, brother.
Michael, Fanone, Fanone.
Fanook. Dude, call yourself Harold now. Use your middle name, Harold something, H something. Harry Dunn. Dunn means poop, by the way. Yeah.
I'd say that's absolutely absurd, because we are running on a historic record of accomplishing everything from 15 million new jobs created under this administration,
oh God,
800,000 manufacturing jobs, the work that the president has done to lower costs for Americans, capping the cost of insulin at $35, making...
Yeah, I've seen this part. This guy just goes on to the fucking talking points. But look at Fanone, man. What is wrong with Fanone? Why is that guy so intense? Is he on coke? Is he on something? He's got those crazy glasses on. All right, let's finish this. There's less than 4 minutes to go. Just finish it.
The single largest investment to combat climate change in our nation's history.
Oh, God, you nobody gives a fuck about wasting money on so-called climate change.
Of the historic record of accomplishment and the vision for the future, the fact remains that the looming threat of MAGA extremism has only grown stronger since January 6th. And so, yeah, we're going to campaign on the president's record, on his vision, and we're going to run against the extremism embodied by Donald Trump as he sits in that
His
building.
vision is probably pretty poor, the old geezer.
Do you really believe that an undecided voter in Michigan or Wisconsin is paying attention to this trial and this work?
Well, they're certainly going to pay attention to the stakes of this election as we continue to communicate it day in and day out. That's what we're doing here today. That's what we're going to do every single day through the debate in Atlanta. That's what
Just looking at those two guys in the back, looking at Fanone, hell, he looks beaten. He looks like he knows this is not going well. This whole thing is not going well. Maybe they expected to get some supporters to come out, right? They thought they would draw their own crowd. But instead they got, DeNiro gives this horrible speech, and they're getting heckled. It just feels hostile. The energy's all wrong. And these poor bastards are going to, from here to November, they think they're going to be, these ridiculous talking points that this brother up front is spending money on climate change, 15 million jobs, the jobs figures, which are bullshit. It's just people coming back from COVID, jobs that they lost to COVID. If I was the Biden campaign, I would say, you know what, Trump is the president of lockdowns. Trump is the president of mandatory vaccines. Trump is the president that ruined the economy with this COVID horse shit, right? Trump is the president of warp speed. He's the president, serving Pfizer. You could get some traction with that.
we'll do ahead of the debate in September 10th. And that's what we'll do from now until Election Day, making sure that voters in states across the country understand the clear choice that they have between a fighter in Joe Biden, who wakes up every single day fighting for them.
Wakes up every single day. Can you imagine? Yeah, Joe jumps out of bed every day. Can you imagine how hard it is to get that poor bastard out of bed? I wonder what that's like, right? Joe Biden, man. Hell, I'm not that old, and I mean, I get up in the morning, and I'm like, right? You know, they hate it. Joe Biden is jumping out of bed and hitting the bricks, man.
And Donald Trump, who's fighting for himself, whether he's here in New York, down in Mar-a-Lago, on Truth Social, when he does venture out onto the campaign stump, he's fighting for one person, that's Donald Trump. So I want to make sure that the American people understand that choice.
Do you expect President Biden at some point to address the trial?
Organized by the Biden campaign. I just want to know why you decided to do this conference here outside the courtroom. Why are you having a political conference outside of a criminal trial?
Again, you all are already here. It's easy to talk about the choice in this election when the entire news media is camped out here day in and day out. So we're talking about the choice that voters are going to have in this election and the threat embodied by the man who is in that building right now. But it is a threat no matter where he is.
Yeah, see, these guys don't know what's going to happen, right? They're thinking, oh, yeah, if we get the conviction, yippee-ki-yay. But, of course, get the conviction, Trump gets a bump in the polls. He raises more money in a single day than maybe anybody ever has, you know. It's not working, and they're not going to be able to actually jail him ahead of the election. So they're going to have this weird situation, right, where he's maybe get elected. He's going to be appealing his conviction, and this, you know, totally biased judge, the same biased judge who presided over this ridiculous trial, you know, is going to be in a position to send him to jail after he's been elected president. We're going to have the worst fucking constitutional crisis. I mean, how does that play out? What if the guy says, no, yeah, I don't care if he's president. No one's above the law. These fucking guys say that. You know, I know there's no God. I wish there, I mean, I'm sorry. But I know there's no God because when they say that, lightning doesn't fucking just strike them immediately, right?
A threat to our fundamental freedoms, a threat to our democracy, a threat to our very way of life. And so this campaign is going to communicate that here in New York. We're going to communicate it across all the battleground states, day in and day out, until voters are able to cast their ballots.
Would you consider Trump a threat to all these wars Biden has gotten us into?
Any media questions?
Is this a weaponization of the Justice Department, sir?
Any media questions? You want to answer the real questions only?
Oh, any media questions?
Stay tuned.
Any softball questions? Right? Those are good questions. Is this a weaponization of the justice system? And you don't have an answer for that? I mean, that's the first question you should have fucking gamed. Okay, how are we going to answer this question? You know, it's going to be a long, hard road for you guys. I just wish it mattered. Maybe it'll be better, but maybe, visionary says here, I have begun to suspect that that which is bad from the beginning, Jim Bowden says, that which is bad from the beginning does not improve by length of time. I won't attempt to pronounce the Latin properly. Yeah, no, it is. I mean, it's almost a truism that it has to be such, right? That it couldn't have been. We're revealing the flaws, this experiment is going bad. Right, the little beaker thing is exploding on the bench. Yeah, it didn't work. And I always think about it. Yeah, okay, how might it have worked? You would have had to put in all these safeguards, right into the Constitution. Things like, yeah, you're not going to flood the country with non-Europeans, non-Christians, write Christianity into the Constitution, all these things, but you realize that nothing would have helped. Nothing would help because, power, corrupt power, it wills out. And just like the law, as we see here, it's not as the law is written, it's the law is practiced, right? And, there's always the ability for the people who've got enough power, who have control of the institutions, they can just interpret the law any way they want, and they can interpret any constitution in any way that we might have tried to lock in, the safeguards. If we had seen this, if our forefathers had seen when it come to this ridiculous stage. But there would have to be so many fucking safeguards. You have to write so many fucking, put in so many guardrails to guard against this stuff that it would have ruined it. I mean, the only way for it to work was for it to remain, a mostly homogeneous country and a mostly virtuous country. As, somebody said, Jefferson or one of them famously said, this isn't going to work with a stupid population. This isn't going to work with a population that lacks virtue. And democracy doesn't work. We have to admit that. And, it's not that bad. We conflate democracy with freedom and liberty. And it's not necessarily the case that you have a democratic country that is a freer country, for one thing. And even the idea of freer, what do you mean freer? What we have in this country is almost unlimited personal license, right? And you can just do whatever you want in your personal life. You've been utterly freed from all the sexual mores and all the old restrictions that sadly reveal our lack of virtue in the virtues that we discard. And we just so quickly discarded family and responsibility and decorum, and decency and all the, all this like the base virtues, and that's what people threw out. But there's freedom at the individual level, and obviously there's freedom at the collective level. And since they've done away with the collective, they've done away with any sense of community, any sense of shared destiny in the population. As a group, we have no freedom, right? When you hear these historic figures talking about freedom, because we're so fucking gaslit about, freedom, when we, like I said, we mean personal license, and we don't even realize it. We mean personal liberty. We mean the most third-grade libertarian idea of liberty, right? Beer and pussy fucking liberty. A people as a collective, a people as a community, a people as a race, as a nation can be free or enslaved. You can be enslaved as a nation and have, this is where we are, enslaved as a nation, enslaved sort of economically, politically, but within that slavery, you can do whatever you want. It's like the Mexican prisons you hear about, right? Like our prisons, you go inside, it's all regimented, they have cells and everything. But there are these prisons in Mexico supposedly where, it's like a little city, right? They just shove everybody in there and and they're kind of on their own. That's what America is now. But I'm sure this brother is going to correct me right now. So let's see if he. I wish I could hear the questions.
Yeah, I'd say one thing. I'd say that the president and his campaign are making clear that the president approaches complex conflicts like this not as a politician, but as the commander-in-chief, making sure that his North Star is American security, global security.
Oh,
making
really?
sure that, yes, Israel has a right to defend itself. Not that any civilian casualty is one too many. He's been very clear about that, and he makes decisions like this with national security in mind.
Oh, holy shit. What does Ukraine have to do with our national security? What does the destruction of Gaza have to do with our national security? Other than to degrade it, right? To lower our standing, to deplete our funds, we're paying money and we're giving them weapons, right? I guess, the defense contractors are loving it. But yeah, how does it serve our interests, much less our security? Yeah, anyway, you know that. You all
That
know.
stands in stark contrast of the person who sits in that building who makes every single decision based upon what's in the best interest of one individual, and that's himself. And so we're going to communicate that choice day in and day out until the election. We're also going to communicate the entirety of what voters are going to be taking to the ballot box. You mentioned young voters, making sure they understand that, again, they have a president who's been fighting to address the existential threat that is climate change, making the single largest investment in climate change.
You mean climate change. I want to punch people when they talk about climate fucking change. Like Jeffrey Sachs, Professor Jeffrey Sachs, you've probably seen him out there. He's been a good guy, a real traitor to his class, the elite. He's been out there talking about Ukraine, talking no nonsense about Ukraine, talking no nonsense about Gaza. Everything I agree with. And the latest thing I see from him, because I'm always getting pushed, just because I watched a few videos, and YouTube just keeps pushing every Jeffrey Sachs interview on me. And then here's Jeffrey Sachs talking about climate change, and this is our problem. And instantly I turn. I'm so disloyal. I'm such a disloyal person. Instantly, Jeffrey Sachs goes from being a hero to being a stupid prick, and I want to throw you off a roof, you dumb bastard, talking about climate change. And talking about it now. Shut the fuck up.
In our nation's history, making sure that they understand that they have a president, Joe Biden, who's been fighting relentlessly to make sure that we can live in communities free from gun violence, passing the first bipartisan gun safety legislation in a
He's got the talking points.
Sure that they bring all of this information to the ballot box, and they understand the clear choice between Joe Biden, who thinks about them, their safety, their interests, day in and day out, versus Donald Trump, who's thinking about himself no matter what.
Yeah, okay, so that's the angle we're playing. Donald Trump is selfish and only thinking of himself. So anyway, something's going on off camera there, and it was apparently probably the clip I saw elsewhere where DeNiro's walking away and he gets accosted, right? And it's like, fuck you, no fuck you, with just some random dude on the street. And I'm dying, so it's De Niro yelling fuck you back and forth at some MAGA guy. And I'm dying because I wish I was there, if I was one of the MAGA people. Because, you want to throw his lines back at him, right? His famous lines. You looking at me? You looking at me? I don't see anybody else. Just keep reading his lines back to him. Right? I don't know if this movie is well known enough. It's a great movie, great performance. The Untouchables, right? He plays Capone. He plays Al Capone as the most vicious bastard, his vision of Trump now, apparently, Al Capone challenging the Fed. I forget who it was. The G-man, right? If you were a man, you would have done it by now. Look at you. Just, there's so many lines you could use. But, yeah, anyway. Who cares? Who cares about movies? Right? Let's just take a music break, a quick one, and I'll be right back. This is a little weird. Me to be the manifesto. I don't know who made this video. All right. Thank you, Jack Dangers. No, that's for later. That's the outro song. All right. Oh, yeah. So, okay. Yeah, we were talking about Sailor in the chat. And I'm not going back to the Sailor comment threads, I've decided. So I'm going to hopefully my discipline holds. But I made myself really into a mean old prick in the Sailor comments over the last couple of years, since Sailor's kind of dropped off. I want to read you the essay that I finally published about Sailor. It's been like a month that I've had. I work in drips and drabs. I've been working a lot, and I'm a lazy fuck already who works in just drips and drabs. And I'm lucky if I get a day where I'm just focused and I can do like an hour of just writing. So it's been like a month, and it's been kicking around in my head this sort of long essay about Steve Sailor and what's happening with him. This whole sorry end, as I see it, to Steve Sailor's career. And he's been very good to me. Back in the day, years ago, he used to always link to my stuff on my blog and was like the only readership I got. But I actually got read because he was getting read by influential people and others. So I was actually getting through, because there was a time when like every week almost he would link to something I wrote. Frankly, I look back at that old stuff and I don't think it's that good. But anyway, so I feel like I owe him, and he has been brave, and he has been very good where he's been good in the past. But I wrote this thing sort of like it was, frankly, like it's like a funeral oration for Sailor. And I don't want to go back to the comment thread there and mix it up with the sorry ass community that exists in his comment threads now. It's like half of them are these. It's really fucking sad, because I was reading Sailor like 15 years ago, maybe 20 years ago almost. I first started reading Sailor. And there's all these guys around there. You've been reading him in the last 4 or 5 years, really in the lame years. The guy hasn't been good. He's still good where he's in his wheelhouse and just analyzing basic stuff that's not going to get him in trouble. He can be very good still. But there are these people who've showed up late to the party, and we just can't stand them. I have to remind myself, Dennis, you were already middle-aged before you started waking up, so give them a break. But I don't care. And they show up here at Sailor's and they're acting like this is all cutting edge shit. And Sailor's very tepid. He's this like fucking weak tea now, right? And I don't give a fuck if you're talking about the black-white IQ difference. Holy fuck, right? The guy is, he's posting the latest on that. It's like, we know this. In fact, he's going backwards. Here he is, he's been like 20 years, I've been reading him talk about these various IQ differences and how it's such nonsense to think that it's all nurture, that's all environmental. But he's still downplaying it. He's still, he's still back there thinking, I'm thinking it's about 50-50. What? Are you fucking high? He gave a speech. There's a very sad video out there of VDare, which is about to be killed. But maybe deservedly so, because that's another outlet that just won't go after the big question. Keeps covering the same ground. But at the same time, like Sailor, has done amazing work in the past. God bless them. But I saw a clip, of the VDare conference they had, the last conference, and they had Steve Sailor show up to speak, John Derbyshire. And in the clip I saw, so there's Peter Bremelo, and I'm like, God, it's just so fucking sad, guys. Everybody's ancient now. We just saw DeNiro. It's like that DeNiro movie, The Irishman, right? Here they are. Here's Scorsese and DeNiro and all these former greats. And they're all like fucking 80 years old now. And they're all saying the same shit, And it's just sad. And you think, God, this is what it came to? Don't let this be the end, this whimpering end. Here comes Brimelow, and Brimelow introduces Derbyshire. And Derbyshire and it's all very pat on the back. Let's fucking suck each other off, conference shit. How great this guy is, and how great the next guy is. And then Steve comes up and gives the worst speech ever. Here's another guy who can't fucking speak publicly, apparently. But I'm just thinking, and it's, none of it's bad except the fact that, where are the young people? Where are the young men? Where are the young people? Where's the fucking, where's the next generation? It's all these old guys just, God bless them, I guess, if they're still showing up. Most people getting that old, and Steve's on the young end of these guys. But anyway, and the sailor gets up and he gives a speech, and because he's really awful at public speaking, he admits this. Guy's zero charisma. He's this huge guy, this big guy with a giant head, big awkward guy with an awkward voice, who admittedly, he says, he's not a good speaker. But here he is, so he says, I'll read the last chapter of my new book, Noticing. The fucking title of this book, too, man, Noticing. It's so anodyne. It's so lame, right? Where's the figure, right? No. Like, deliberately toning everything down, weakening everything. That's what drives you nuts about sailing. So, why write a speech? I can read the last chapter of my book. Okay, fine. But here he is talking, and I realize, the guy spent 20 years, like I said, proving the overwhelming influence of genetics on intelligence at the individual level and at the racial level, right? That they're, these things are real. That intelligence is in your genes. Vastly more important is your genetic. You can't make smart people. You can do what you can environmentally. Obviously, it makes a difference how well a kid is brought up, how well educated, all that. But it's almost entirely genetic how smart you're going to be. Obviously that's not the end of the discussion, but that's the reality. And here he is downplaying that shit. Right? He gives this line where he says, and he's congratulating himself like this is very perceptive and brave, but it's a cop-out. He says, well, no, it's really about this fascinating interplay between nature and nurture, this fascinating and complicated interplay between nature, your genetic endowment, and nurture, your environment in which you're raised, and it's so fascinating because we're just like taking it apart. This is a big job, right? That we're unraveling this mystery. And I realize, no. It's no fucking huge mystery, and it's not that fucking interesting. It's not. It's just not. And you realize, in the way I put it in the comment thread up there at Sailors, like I said, I'm not going back, because all I do is end up going in there and insulting the guy, and I really do like him and owe him a lot. But it's like, you're making this journey to the truth, and you get to the truth, to the undeniable truth, right? To the clearing. You've been walking through brush and woods and weeds. You get to the clearing, right? And there it is, and you're overwhelmed. You can't take it. You're afraid all of a sudden, because for one thing, it's the end. Right? Now you have to go and settle. Right? Now you have to go and commit to the reality, right? And you don't want to do that, and obviously you don't want to do that in our environment, because it means, you lose whatever public standing you might have. So you get to the clearing, right? Having made the journey, you reach the clearing, and in your fear, in your overwhelmed, being overwhelmed, you stop and you turn back to the weeds, and you start to pretend to find interest in the weeds, and you start to fucking root around in the brush like there's, no, it's here. When there it is, right there. And that's the feeling I get watching these motherfuckers and watching them talk about this horse shit, about the fascinating interplay. Motherfucker, we're at war, the fascinating interplay. Just stop. Just say you don't want to go there. Like I said, just say, okay, no, I don't want to take a position on Israel. I don't want to take a position on that or this or that. This is my wheelhouse, you know? Okay, do that. But shut the fuck up. I mean, the guy came out, you know. Apparently, I don't blame people for going conventional on COVID that much. I, at first, bought into it. I mean, I could imagine myself having got the jab if I had stayed in that place where I first saw, oh, yeah, it's a serious, yeah, this is serious. Yes, yes, yes. I was wearing a mask at first. But obviously it's bullshit. I didn't even blame people for that. Plus, this is an older guy. He's had cancer. Maybe he worries more about it. Frankly, I'm the type of guy who doesn't like to take medicines, and I'll neglect my health to a fault. But you know, where he really lost me was when Putin invaded Ukraine. And this was a classic moment of, dude, just stay the fuck out of it. Don't make yourself look stupid. Putin invades Ukraine, and he jumps on board with the pro-Ukraine bullshit, right? Oh, yeah, Putin's, you know, he made some really lame joke about it. I forget what it was. And this is a guy who's got a good sense of humor, and occasionally it can be quite funny. But every now and then, usually when he's ducking and dodging and doing something stupid like this, like pitching in with the pro-Ukraine people, he makes lame jokes. But yeah, when I saw that, I thought, what the fuck, dude? Come on. He was like with everybody else who was saying, you know, oh, Putin's a madman, you know, this kind of thing. Oh, Putin's evil, this kind of thing. Like, let's just totally ignore 2014 and the Maidan coup. Let's just totally ignore the fact that we've been pushing on Russia's borders with NATO. Totally ignore that this was a recognized red line by your establishment, Steve. Your fucking establishment. You know, got people like George Kennan, Brzezinski, the big new Brzezinski, who was practically a neocon. I think he is classified as a neocon. Was one of the guys that said, no, this is a red line. We don't need to put fucking Ukraine on Russia's border in NATO, the organization that was created to counter the Soviet Union. We don't need to do that, guys. Come on, that's crazy. That's courting World War III, right? So let's totally fucking ignore that and print. I won't go into the stupid joke that Steve made about how the stupid joke he made about it, but you know, it suggested that he understands all this, but he was saying, well, no, because Putin invaded, it negates every stupid thing we've done to push it up to this point. Is negated because Putin invaded. So Putin, he thinks, like the neocons and every other idiot out there, Putin and Russia were just supposed to endure it, right? And if that meant we bring Ukraine into NATO and put missiles on the Russian border, well, you can't invade. We don't invade countries anymore. Well, let's forget about Iraq. But yeah, okay. Anyway. Jim Bowden says, Dennis, the Jays are now trying to divert the Goy masses from anti-Zionism to anti-Islam. Yeah, no, it is. And this is another thing about Saylor, which is really sad, and he should be standing up against this. So they're seizing on Saylor now, right? There's this guy out there, his name's Lomez on Twitter. This all got very gay and cringe, too. It's so sad. Lomez got doxxed recently. And so everybody jumped in saying how, oh, not only is it okay that Lomez got doxxed, they put his name out there. He's Jewish. And it's like the people are, I guess he's a handsome guy. You know, he runs Passage Press, which is this little dissident, quirky, like small press out there that seems to be doing okay. I actually bought a book from them. It was all right. Peter Rengel's memoirs of being a general and leading the white Russian side in the Russian Civil War. I didn't know anything about Passage Press at the time. I just saw this and said, oh, I'll buy that. I'll put that on my Kindle. Anyway, Lomas gets outed, and there's this whole gay fucking cringe fest around how glamorous Lomas is because he's a good-looking guy. And then I start looking over at Passage Press, and I notice they publish shit. There's one Twitter personality, this utter cringe guy, calls himself raw egg nationalist. These Twitter guys, you talk about working out and shit and eating raw eggs or what crap, and they post like, they don't even realize what they're posting, but they'll post like muscle man pictures. This is fucking gay kitsch, right? This is the kind of shit that was used to be considered gay kitsch. The kind of shit you would expect to see, like on I guess they don't have like pornographic magazines now, right? But it used to be you went into some places and there would be like a wall of pornographic magazines behind the counter of a liquor store. We call them liquor stores here in California because the convenience store can sell hard liquor too. But yeah, it used to be like there might be like one or two like gay mags, and they would have, right? Of course, right? It's like gay kitsch porn, like the gays would have like the biker, right? A guy in the biker hat, a buff guy with his shirt open and a biker hat, lumberjacks. They post shit like this unironically, and this is the fucking aesthetic anyway. And it all got really fucking gay cringe over there at Sailors around Lomez, which was unforgivable. But, yeah. So anyway, they've seen, so Lomez apparently, and these other guys are a faction out there. These sort of relatively young guys, Jewish guys. Bap is one of them. Lomez, there's other guys, a bunch of Twitter guys. I follow and they follow me on Twitter. Many of them. Lomez follows me. Bap follows me. So there's a whole crew of them, and they're dominated by Jewish guys that have seized on Sailor. Yeah, Jim. And it's they're just blatantly going with. So a bunch of us, like me, are out here criticizing Israel for its brutality in Gaza. And I'll tell anybody, if anybody wants to ask, I'll say my problem was with the diaspora Jews in my country, who I don't really distinguish from the Israeli nationalist citizens of Israel, because Israel doesn't distinguish and they don't distinguish that much. So I don't view the Jewish diaspora in the United States, in the West, in the world, as being disconnected from Israel. No. I view them as an extension largely. It's complicated, especially at an individual level, because there's so many Jews that I still like and admire. I'm sorry, guys. I'm just not like that, where I start to think. I'm not like some fucking decrepit old rabbi who talks about the rear of a different substance. I just fucking hate it. At the end of the day, I'm kind of anti-racist. I know, it's pathetic. But anyway. Yeah, but these guys, like the Lomez crew, we'll just call them the Lomez faction, have seized on Sailor. Yeah, like I said, he's like their golden retriever, too. It's pathetic. And Sailor's like licking it up. Like if he even has this look on his face when he posts. He's posting like pictures of him on his little victory lap, out promoting the book. And he has this dumb look that he looks like a fucking golden retriever. He's like their golden retriever, like wagging his tail and just, smiling away, just the best, friendliest fucking dog you could ever have. But they've seized on Sailor, yeah, especially in light of this. And they see guys like me and hardcore guys like Lucas Gage, if you know who he is on Twitter. And we're out there criticizing Israel's actions in Palestine. Like I said, it starts with the diaspora here for me. And it would be enough for me if my country would cut off Israel, if we could be free of Israel, because I believe the real crime and the reason why all these defenses against all these people who say my anti-Semitism is unfounded. I mean, there's not just one thing, and it's not the only thing, but there's the only thing I need for me to feel this way is the undeniable fact that my country doesn't have a foreign policy. My country doesn't have a foreign policy, hasn't had one this whole century. It was 2003 that we invaded Iraq, obviously at the behest of Israel, obviously for Israel. And I was talking about that diaspora being a problem because the neocons here, are more concerned about Israel than they are about us. And they got us into Iraq in 2003, recall. That's all I need, guys. So, of course, it would be enough for me if we stopped funding Israel, if we cut off relations with them, If we forced, and I know it's probably not possible, right? These fuckers will take us down before they let it happen. They're too powerful here to let it happen. But anyway, that's the ideal. That's the only just ideal that we should strive for. So that's enough for me. So the way I view the Palestine situation, and you'd have to be completely heartless not to sympathize with the Palestinians. And for one thing, I don't view Hamas as these awful fuckers. October 7th, so horrible. Are you kidding? No. I mean, they've been pushed into this little strip in Gaza. They're what's left of the Arabs there, right? Who've been overrun by Israel with with us behind them, their superior weapons, money, and intelligence. Frankly, everything. They've managed to push them into this little strip in Gaza. And I'm going to be a phony moralist and say no. So young guys there in Gaza decide, we're going to do terrorism because fuck it. I'm sorry. To me, that's phony. To me, it's a question of whether or not they get to fight for their land or not. And anybody gets to fight for their land if they have a rightful claim to it, and they arguably have a more rightful claim to it than Israel does. That's where it ends. That's where the Palestinian side ends. Anyway, having said all this, these people who have seized Sailor, and I don't know how well thought out it is, but I suspect it's fairly well thought out. The Baptists, the Lomez guys, all these fucking dudes. They've seized Sailor, and they're taking him on tour. Like I said, he's like their fucking golden retriever now. And they're going after like the Fuentes side and people like me and, well, if I was of prominence, but that our philosophy, which is critical of Israel, critical of what they're doing in Palestine. And they've grabbed Sailor because Sailor will not touch the JQ. He's got too many good Jewish friends. He's too, perhaps, chicken shit, frankly, to take on the question. He's not going to go there regarding Jews and power. So they've seized on him, and they're taking his writings on race and IQ, and they're talking about brown people. And they're doing this clumsy attempt to troll you. Fuentes and others. You guys are siding with brown people. You dummies are siding with the Muslims who hate you and brown people. Dumb brown people. This is the fucking kind of thing they're talking about openly. What a bunch of saps. And I even saw, and one of the great things Sailor did, and Sailor in his heyday, like 10, 15 years ago when he was really cooking, was remarkable. It was like every week he would throw off an excellent insight that was worth getting attention by other people, right? He threw off so many that, you couldn't keep count. And one of the things he did, and this is great, this guy's just sitting there in his fucking house blogging. One of the things he pointed out, nobody's talking about it, but he pointed out about the Iraq War around 2005, that, hey, this democracy promotion won't work for one big reason. Aside from all the other bullshit, all of the first cousin marriage that goes on in a place like Iraq, first and second cousin marriages, and he demonstrated how those bonds, with these families are already tighter than we know in the West, where everybody's kind of liberated and atomized, frankly. No, these familial bonds were so much thicker, the fibers, right, were so much thicker that the idea that you were just going to give them democracy modeled on what we have would not work, right? I saw somebody writing recently then, one of these guys on the Bap Lomez faction, bringing up good old cousin marriage to tell us, and this is what the kind of shit they're doing. Oh, the Palestinians, they're just fucking totally lying and gaslighting at this point. I think this guy said something like, because the Palestinians are all marrying their cousins, they all have an IQ of about 67, right? And that, in a nutshell, is kind of what their whole fucking program is, right? They're going with that. Don't look at the Jews. Don't look at this. Don't think of Israel. Forget that. Forget that. Don't look at the astounding difference between the way they handled BLM and the way they handled the genuinely mostly peaceful protests on behalf of Palestine. Don't pay attention to that. Look at those stupid Muslims. Remember Muslims? Remember 9/11? It's all so fucking stupid, it makes me want to throw one of them off a building. Yeah. Anyway. Phil the Kill says they have older Christian evangelicals on the coalition you mentioned and not much else. Well, they've got older Christians and they've got a small set of these younger, maybe closet cases. Like I said, they all post like gay, kitschy porn images of Muslim men on their fucking avatars on Twitter and talk about working out and, your lats and remember Bap, how he started out. I thought he was openly gay. I was actually following him on Twitter because it was interesting, the whole thing he was going with, Bronze Age. But the pervert I never got. And then he started doing Handsome Thursday. Does anybody remember this shit? Every Thursday he would post images of naked guys, like naked guys running down the beach. Handsome Thursday, right? He's always buff, young, naked. And I started getting this shit in my feed and I had to stop following him. He doesn't do it anymore. I follow him now, just keep track, I want to keep track of everybody. I don't agree with him, but yeah. So anyway, that's where he started. Anyway. Phil the Kill says, Sailor streams from a literal closet. Yeah, it is bizarre. It is weird. Yeah, I saw somebody was interviewing him. Oh, yeah, it was really sad. I mean, it just gets sadder and sadder. He did an interview with Charlie Kirk. He's in the closet, literally in a closet. There's clothes. The clothes are hanging behind him. And he's in this little fucking cubby closet. There's no way. What is your wife makes you go in the closet? Because she, I don't know. If you were here at the start of the broadcast, you saw DeNiro in the movie King of Comedy broadcasting literally from his mom's basement. Is it that bad? I have a hard time. Anyway. Literally. Isn't that funny? So Sailor's in the closet, and so are many of his new Aeroliste followers. Yeah, so that's where they're going, and they're not going to get anywhere. And I know there's a huge problem for us in that if you're like me, you're enjoying seeing Israel get called out. You're enjoying seeing Israel spend all this capital all of a sudden. You're enjoying seeing the tide turn for them because the problem is the control they have over our country. But it's only coming because our young people, the young Westerners, are all gaslit on anti-colonialist, to them. Like I always say about the blacks and browns, they view Jews as the uber whites in a sense, as the, Western whites, and they have the same sins of Western whites and maybe the uber whites, the worst of the whites because they're the richest and they're currently engaged in settler colonialism. So we have a huge problem, yeah. But I'm not gonna say, okay, yeah, all of a sudden, my real enemy, my real problem, which is who, right, and the power they have over everything. Oh yeah, but no, because it's coming from these brown people, these Muslims, and they hate me, and and the white wokesters, hate the West. Yeah, well, it's a fucking problem. It's a problem foisted on me by these same people that I'm enjoying. It's blowback, guys. It is blowback. It's blowback against the people who've been gaslighting our own kids, who've been bringing in hordes of Muslims and others. But it is notable what's happening in the United States. In that all of a sudden Trump's getting all this support from these brown people, right? And the one thing they were supposed to count on regarding Trump was that they could demagogue the brown masses. They could demagogue all the, every second generation immigrant, right? Every brown kid in America whose parents came here legally or illegal is supposed to hate Trump, but it's not happening. I think it's largely not happening because Biden is so awful. Israel is so awful. What they're doing in Israel is so awful. Mostly Biden, but that's one reason it's not working. And it's glorious. I mean, I'd rather go out with a bang and have this out now, have this thing reach ahead now. Well, there's still a few of us left, frankly, than to sit back like the dopes over at Sailors and say, oh man, I'm not down with brown. I don't get down with no brown. So, yes, sir, Mr. Israel. What do we do? Yeah, fuck you. You do that, schmuck. You do that, putz. I no do that. All right? All right. So anyway, I got kind of carried away there. I'm sorry. Phil the Kill says he's calibrated. Maybe that's it. I'm a California boy too. Of course, I've spent like the last 20 years in the Northwest. No better. Cali's different. Where I live right now in Cali, I think it's majority Mexican, majority Latino in my neighborhood. Hardly any white people left, really. But there is, after all these years, you have to acknowledge there is something to this so-called natural conservatism of the Latinos. They're working class and they're not brought up. They're Catholic, and they're not, the Northwest European people like me who have an inborn sort of liberalism, an inborn curiosity and openness and tolerance, which has, been used against us. So there is that. And here in Orange County, where I am now, there's not a lot of in this house bullshit. There's not a lot of gay pride flags. I don't see trans people everywhere. I'm near Huntington Beach, which was like one of the last bastions of conservative white Orange County. So, it's not that bad. I didn't know what Steve's experiencing up there in the valley. I mean, I think the problem with Steve is that he's got all these nice Jewish friends. He likes that Steven Pinker exchanges emails with him. He likes that Charles Murray admires his work. Right? He doesn't want to queer that. Excuse the phrase, but that's what they used to say back in the day. He doesn't want to mess that up. He likes his nice Jewish friends more than he likes you and I. I don't even blame him. I don't even blame the guy. Visionary asked, did Tvider invite Warren Balog or Below? I don't know who that is, Visionary. Should I? Visionary says, this obvious thing is so complex. Yeah, it just infuriates me. It's not that complex, and it's not that relevant. It's not that salient, right? No, let's pretend this is fascinating thing, interplay of... Because the thing with nature and nurture, Steve was talking about nature versus nurture, and he never points this out, and I think it's deliberate. Because he said something that was so outrageous. I think he said, it's about 50-50, I suspect. For one thing, he's talking at this late stage about how we don't really know the true balance of nature and nurture in determining an individual's intelligence, which is silly. And I think he said it's about 50-50 or something equally just about that dumb. Sorry, Steve. And I pointed out in the comment threads, and I think he obviously knows this, but if it's 50-50, that's a disaster for the nature side. For the people who say it's all environment, it's all your upbringing. If it's 50-50, man, that's a fucking disaster for your point of view. Because, because culture, education, nurture, it's replicable. Anybody can copy it. Anybody can adopt it. Anybody can maximize it, right? Any country, and countries do this, in places like China and in non-democratic societies, try to maximize the nurture, seeking to make the population as smart and productive for whatever as they want, as they desire. That's replicable. It's meaningless almost. If it's 50% nature, that means that 50%, which is fucking in your genes, in your blood, unalterable, born with it, right? Bred in the bone, right? That you can't do anything with. So that's going to dominate. If you get 50%, a block, like a granite block that you're stuck with, and 50% that you could do whatever you want with. You can maximize it, you can ignore it, right? In fact, if it was 10% genes and the rest was nurture, that would be a disaster for the blank slate point of view, which is still kind of in effect. It's as ridiculous as it is. But there are still people out there that will tell you it's entirely environment, right? Our whole system, people don't realize in America, disparate impact is written into law as if it's entirely environmental. And there's no genetic component to intelligence, which is an absolute absurdity. I pointed out to Sailor, I said, 50-50 would be a disaster, but I know what you're doing, Steve. You're throwing this out there for the dummies. They hear 50-50 and they think they cancel each other out. They don't even think about the replicability of environment and the absolute nature of genetics. They think 50-50, it's a wash. We don't have to worry about anything. That's how stupid the goddamn debate is. So that's why it's so fucking stupid to talk about the fascinating interplay of nature. Yeah, no, it isn't fascinating. You should do whatever you can to maximize the nurture that's provided to children, obviously, right? You do whatever you can to maximize it, but you have to understand you're going to have the disparate outcomes, and kids are only going to go as far as their nature will let them, right? And frankly, you should probably be tailoring. Obviously, you should be tailoring that nurture to the type of child. And it's not just intelligence, it's all kinds of things. It just infuriates me. Bill the Kill says the next generation is not afraid to mention the you-know-who's. Yeah, that's the thing. And it's glorious. And I'm talking about the Mexicans here. The non-whites are not afraid to mention it. They're not gaslit. They're not inherently liberal. You hear me talking all this racist, anti-Semitic stuff, and you think Dennis is like this reactionary dude. Not at all. My nature is quite liberal. I'm Germanic, German and Dutch. And my nature, my genetic component is, frankly, to a fault, I am tolerant. To a fault, I seek to be fair. Even having come to all these conclusions regarding race and you-know-who and everything else, I still feel the pull inside, to be fair, to prove that I'm not a bigot. It's part of a good thing if you're in a homogeneous environment, if you're not being set upon by people from outside of that genetic family, obviously. But anyway, that was a rant. I didn't want to rant. I wanted to read you. All right. So anyway, like I said, it takes me months to write just a few words. And what happens is, like I said, probably literally a month ago, I started jotting notes down for this because I got the idea in the Sailor comment threads that say, just this is where it starts for me. The concept, Sailor is being given his Lifetime Achievement Award now. And the Lifetime Achievement Award used to be kind of almost like a booby prize that they give to people who kind of didn't get recognized when they should have. So we'll give you the lifetime honors late in life because we feel bad about the fact that you never got recognized when you were relevant. Like the actor Peter O'Toole was going to get a Lifetime Achievement Award at the Academy Awards. And at first he declined. He said, no, thanks. You know, he's like 80 years old at the time. He said, no, thanks. Because it's almost condescending. That used to be the view. I don't know if people still view it that way or not. And that's the feeling I got watching this happen with Sailor, this pathetic spectacle with Sailor. And I had this thing out of control. I mean, I had like 3,000, 4,000 words and mess, just kept throwing shit into it. And what I usually do is, I can't manage it. Mere 4,000 words is too much. I don't know how to fucking order it. And I ended up cutting it way down to a short, like 1,200 words here. Yes, Jim Bowden, we love Israel. All right, so I've got a Substack, and subscribe to it if you can, and I'll try to keep it up. I'll try to keep it up. Yeah, I got a little mileage out of this one. Yeah, and I'll try to throw up worthwhile prose from time to time. This is called Noticing in Nothingness, Steve Saylor's Lifetime Achievement Award. Now, this is a quote paraphrasing the famous speech in Julius Caesar by Shakespeare. I come to bury Caesar, not praise him. So I paraphrase that here to start out. I come to bury Sailor and to praise him. If you're reading this, you probably know who Steve Saylor is, but if you don't, he's a former marketing executive whose interest in genuine racial diversity, as opposed to the diversity of diversity, equity, and inclusion, led him into journalism in the 90s, where he contributed to the National Review until his insight and honesty in dealing with racial questions led William F. Buckley to send him packing in his Baudelaireizing purge of the magazine in 1997. Since then, Steve has spent the current century exploding the various blank slate errata making up today's secular dispensation, analyzing and expounding on social and political trends with a unique combination of common sense and penetrating insight. For this temerity, he's been forced to publish from the obscurity of his I, Steve blog, hosted since 2014 by Ron Unz's rogue website, The Unz Review, which specializes in publishing writers and ideas banished from the mainstream. This year, he released an anthology of his work, Noticing, an Essential Reader by Steve Saylor, offered for direct purchase by small alternative outlet Passage Press. There's a relatively reasonably priced paperback and a limited run of leather-bound, quote-unquote, patrician versions for $395. Yeah, I mean, that's, well, don't get me started on that, but okay. This will not be a review of the book, but of its promotion. Over the years, Steve's casually thrown off more useful concepts, insights, and memorable phrases than one could keep track of. Over time, these have percolated up through layers of suppression to influence, almost always without credit, polite conservatives. His description of open borders combined with liberal intervention, quote, invade the world, invite the world, found its way into conservative parlance. His call for Republicans to adopt policies designed to create, quote, affordable family formation, unquote. His description of the identity politics regime as the, quote, the coalition of the fringes, unquote. His mocking of Ellis Island kitsch and the 0th Amendment to the Constitution demanding anyone in the world has a right to emigrate to America and bullying resistance to mass immigration. His, quote-unquote, sailor strategy. More on that below. His phrasing of racial diversity as human biodiversity, HBD. His definition of race as a, quote, partially inbred extended family, unquote. His unearthing of the barrier to ill-advised democracy promotion in other cultures, consanguineous marriage, or marriage between cousins, making familial bonds more important than citizenship. His exposure of the hypocrisy of liberalism now. his high and low against the middle, as in elite demagoguery setting lower classes and disaffected against the hated middle class to maintain power. These are but a few of Saylor's original ideas. But coinciding with Saylor's remarkable career of pointing out the lies and obfuscations of the powerful has been the steady consolidation of their power. That consolidation accelerated in the response to Donald Trump's successful campaign for president and subsequent administration, as a desperate elite launched the current regime of censorship based initially on the Russian collusion hoax and expanded now to include any dissenting views proving troublesome to power. In a very real sense, it can be said that that frantic but successful shutting down of dissent in response to Trump has been a response to the success of Saylor's ideas. In 2000, Steve suggested his Saylor strategy for Republican presidential candidates, advising they maximize white voter turnout with policy focused on making it easier to start a family, affordable family formation, and sensible immigration restriction, rather than their quixotic, I hate to say quixotic, I always want to say quixotic, but I never hear anybody say it that way. Rather than their quixotic election cycle appeals to the, quote, natural conservatives, unquote, of the growing Hispanic population and serial promotion of black mediocrities. Donald Trump's insurgent candidacy proved the Saylor strategy effective, to the outrage of the elite and chagrin of even the Republican establishment. Furthermore, Trump's popular appeal, if not quite his governance in office, under the banner of MAGA, bears close resemblance to another Saylor notion, citizenism, which is simply the philosophy that the country should be run on behalf of its citizens without favor for race, sexuality, sex, immigration status, the components of Steve's, quote, coalition of the fringes, unquote, now dominating our politics. Citizenism was nothing new, but a call to restore the principle of a colorblind constitutionalism taken for granted before the 60s ushered in the perverse present. But for Saylor, reintroducing this obvious idea also was a means to circumvent what he saw as the otherwise inevitable rise of white identity politics, where white Americans openly, rather than implicitly, took their own side in the fray of identity politics dominating our elections, and which Trump, of all people, seems to be unsettling now. Furthermore, Trump's, quote, America First, unquote, slogan, evoking citizenism under another name, combined with his opposition to wars of liberal intervention, brings to mind yet another aforementioned Saylorism: invade the world, invite the world. Trump therefore brought two of Saylor's central theses into play in sudden, dramatic fashion in 2016. Steve didn't seem to notice, and by the time Trump was ousted and challenging the 2020 election results at the Supreme Court, he dismissed Trump's fight with a shrug, seemingly content to be relieved of the embarrassing association with the boorish Trump, and adding to his growing catalog of conventional views the refusal to find anything suspect in the last presidential election. Since then, Steve's fall from grace, for some, has only accelerated. He's accepted uncritically the COVID narrative, including lockdowns and mandatory vaccines, embraced the demonization of Russia following its invasion of Ukraine, and steered clear of Israel's destruction of Gaza after October 7th and the subsequent unleashing of American law enforcement on protesters, choosing instead to take up, half-heartedly, the fight against, quote-unquote, anti-Semitism. As new divisions on the right coalesce around the post-October 7th moment, with the far right dividing between anti-Semitic and anti-Zionist forces on one hand and pro-Israel right-wingers on the other, excuse me, Saylor's ideas have proven more useful to the latter. From this quarter comes now an argument ostensibly based on Steve's quote-unquote racist writings about HBD, invoking the supposed intellectual inferiority of brown Palestinians and even in one case cousin marriage, which Saylor once demonstrated was antithetical to American attempts to install a liberal democracy in Iraq. All of this to justify Israeli atrocities. It is with a profound sense of pathos that I consider this supposed revival and belated recognition of Saylor, who seems to have acquired a whole new generation of admirers to replace the many more who have fallen away in recent years. Some embittered with a sense of betrayal, some depressed with a sense of futility, and some perhaps, exhausted by the repetition of points long ago proved, and now proven to make no difference. Steve's victory lap in promotion of the book is not the beginning of Saylor's long overdue influence on the national dialogue, but the end of it. More whimper than bang. Saylor's being given the equivalent of a belated Lifetime Achievement Award, with relief that whatever threat he posed is long gone, and with the apparent confidence that his ideas on race and IQ can now be the grounds for defending Jewish domination of American politics. It seems less that Saylor is being rewarded for his bold transgressions, as his Araviste promoters now, one part clueless and one part disingenuous, proclaim, but more as if he's being rewarded for his compliance. Compliance to the suspect COVID narrative, compliance to the U.S.'s proxy war on Russia through the destruction of Ukraine, compliance to the solidifying of Jewish dominance based on the merit of superior intelligence over America. Above all, Saylor has signaled that he is opposed to any explicit expression of white advocacy. After years of exposing the lies upon which the system is now founded, Saylor has shown that he will not abandon his ultimate faith in the system, whatever form it takes and wherever it leads from its terrifying present. Meanwhile, Saylor carries on lapping the competition in a race long ago won and no longer relevant. Another memorable phrase of Steve's, the, quote, point and sputter, unquote, describing the unfortunately effective but intellectually dishonest practice of pointing out and defaming as racist or otherwise verboten statements or ideas without any attendant substantive refutation of their veracity, remains in effect and effective, while Saylor continues to indulge in what I call the point and titter, the practice of pointing out conventional absurdities for a laugh but to no meaningful effect. And beyond this point, it isn't clear their effect isn't in fact deleterious, acting as an energy sink and diversion. For a long time, but notably not for a while now, Saylor expressed confidence in the triumph of truth, of the steady march of facts and new revelations in the study of genetics to finally overcome the lies of egalitarianism. I recall him citing an anonymous anecdote. A race realist asked by a leftist university professor how long it would take before race realism would become publicly undeniable, with the professor lapsing into thoughtful silence at the answer, in a few decades or so, as if contemplating the consequences. Well, the professor need not have worried, we can see now. Steve and his readers thought something would have to give over time. Something gave, all right, but it wasn't the elite's hold on power or the power of their lies. Saylorism is resolving not in what Steve predicted, a world not much different than the one we see now, but unencumbered by absurd misconceptions. No. It seems more likely now that Saylor's contribution will be the justification of elite power, dominated by Jews, on the basis of, ironically enough, racial supremacy. His critics got it half right, and may be relieved for that reality. And this last line is paraphrasing a quote from that same Lend Me Your Ear speech from Shakespeare. My heart is in the coffin there with Saylor, and I must retrieve it before it's buried there with him. All right. All right. Phil the Kill says Luke Ford is still a huge Saylor fan. I bet that should tell you all you need to know. Yeah, it really does. That's like, okay, it's like Richard Hanania. Just okay, You know, it's like someone walking up with a fucking septum piercing. It just tells me so much about you. It just tells me that I don't have to take you seriously. And, you know. Yeah, you know. And you're just tiresome. You're tiresome. You're boring. And I don't know why you guys bother. I don't know why you guys carry on. If you're going to be conventional, okay. If you don't have anything original to say, if you're fine with the way things are going, then shut the fuck up and go do fucking meaningful work. You know? I do this after I work a full day, you fucking bastards. Yeah, you guys don't even work. I don't know what Luke does. I think he's got a job as a gopher. I suspect he's doing some shitty menial work and he won't tell anybody. He wants to pretend he's making 6 figures. You poor dumb bastard. You converted to Judaism because they're the wealthy, winning side, and now you're neither wealthy nor winning. Yeah, you so poor bastard. Anyway, God bless you. God bless you, Steve. God bless you, Luke. God bless you, Richard Hanania, and all you fucking irrelevant fucks out there. All right. Yeah, anyway, here's the Daily Mail. Donald Trump gets a 6-point bump in approval after being found guilty on 34 counts, according to this Daily Mail poll. Yeah, so it's going to get interesting, and I almost want to vote for Trump just because of this. And I still do go back and forth a little in my mind that maybe it is better to vote for Trump, despite his Zionism, because maybe he will do these other things. And maybe these people, that's funny, all these guys who've picked, these youngish guys who've picked up Steve and made him their pet, they're probably all pro-Trump. I mean, Trump is ideal for them. Super pro-Israel, but maybe he'll get immigration under control, maybe even deport people, right? And, you know, all that other stuff. I mean, he's kind of good on most other things, though frankly, on economics, he's just another Republican, and we probably need somebody to come in with some more radical views on economics, somebody to take on the bankers and shit, but obviously he's not going to do that. He's going to be a low taxes, low wages Republican. But anyway, I still think maybe it's still worth voting for him, I mean, but it's really sad what's happened. I mean, it's 2016. We were elated when Trump won. Now, here's 8 years later, and Trump is practically Jeb Bush, as far as I'm concerned. Okay, another thing we were going to talk about. I've worn myself out today. Tiring. I'm going to have to shut her down soon. So, Alex Jones says they're trying to shut down his studio and literally take the physical take over his studio and take his equipment.
It would take 2 hours to explain just what happened in the last 24 hours. So I'm just going to give you a quick basic summation, and I'm going to explain why I'm doing this, okay? But the best way to start is to explain that we have a private security firm that's a local security firm, and we've had them for 6 years, 7 years. And we've got, during the day when people are here, armed guards, and at night some armed guards as well. They're great people, and they do a good job, and they're professional. But I don't go around here all paranoid. I'm confident, but I pick up on things, and I've learned to follow, the Holy Spirit instincts. So I noticed that a guard I've known for about a year, a nice guy, was acting kind of weird and running around the office and looking at me kind of weird. And I called my lawyer, and I said, is something going on? And they said, They said, yeah, we didn't want to upset you. They're going to close InfoWars tonight at 9 p.m. And they're going to change the locks. And we learned about this yesterday, but we were trying to fix it. And we just didn't want to, give you a heart attack. But that's what's going on. And I said, well, why is that happening? There's a hearing on the 14th. There's plenty of money in the company, not a ton, but I'd say we're like got a tenth of a gas tank. The bills are paid. There's a few $1,000,000 extra in there, which you need as a buffer. Taxes are paid, and they're like, yeah. And then they explained it to me, and that gets into a whole bunch of issues and things that are going on. But the long and short of it is, people that don't know how bankruptcy works, you can only go with select groups of people that are already in that court during a bankruptcy that come in and manage a company. And none of the established people want to touch Alex Jones' 10-foot pole. So imagine who would come and say, oh, I'll do it. And that's basically the story of what then happened. There was one CRO here for about 6 months. It was a very nice person, but did not understand anything. And the company was in a good position, had plenty of money then, and did things like, it's important to understand all this. I said, it would take hours. If we've got $170,000 a week of shipping costs on $500,000-$600,000 of product being sold at that time, now it's half of that because of all what's going on. Because they don't even buy the product anymore, most of it. Then how do you, if you put it to the court that shipping will be $100,000 a week? Well, how are you going to ship the other $70,000 if it didn't happen? So this is before I'm in bankruptcy. Free speech is in bankruptcy. This is 2 years ago. So I go and I say, fine, I'll put my money in to pay for the shipping, because they didn't want to go tell the court that they'd filed something wrong. And so for a month and a half, I put in, at that time, most of the money I had to then make sure the product, because we usually ship stuff a day after you order it. People notice, back 2 years ago, like, why is it taking, it's been a month, I haven't gotten my stuff. Well, they just wouldn't ship it. They wouldn't pay for the postage, even though the money was there. People put the postage in. So I was like, we got to fire this CRO. Well, the judge is so astute, Lopez, he fires that guy while I'm up at the Connecticut show trial. And I got him, give a press conference, and said, I think Lopez is the right thing. I'm not against the last CRO, but this is bizarre. The media spun it. What's Jones doing?
Are you guys interested in this?
Well, I mean, my God, you got to ship your stuff. And of course,
I haven't been paying attention, frankly. All right. Is there anything else remaining? What else was this show going to be about? I think I might have had something else. Yeah, I'm trying to clean up my act and make the shows about something. Like, give them subject matter, give them content. No, we covered everything. There's nothing more to cover. Unless you guys have something to add in the chat. Thank you so much for being here, Jim Bowden, Phil the Kill, Visionary, Chris Alton. And somewhere I saw our good friend King Kush. Always good to see the Kush Master. Visionary Companion, Viz. Scott S. Adam. Thank you all. God bless you, boys. I don't know what happened to you. I don't know if it was trauma. I don't know how you got off the straight and narrow and ended up here, but I'm glad you did. And I want everything to work out well for you. I want you to have happy lives. Phil the Kill says he sees Alex's giant head and tunes out mentally. Yeah, I mean, God bless him, but, yeah, I don't really have time to pay attention to that. It's got a long, boring story about why they're shutting him down. And it's got something to do with him getting sued by, I guess, the Sandy Point parents. Yeah, We love you. we love you, Alex, but you're not, you're not all there either, dude. Right? You're not quite, you're not really quite, you're not complete on all the, you're afraid to touch that third rail too, just like everybody else we've been talking about. That's okay. I don't expect it, I don't expect it. Anyway, thank you, boys. Have a good one. Let's see if I can mute.
Suona chitarra mia, suoni abbattenti, suona chitarra mia, suoni abbattenti. Di colpi giusti lo suona tutti da, di colpi giusti suona chitarra mia, di colpi giusti suona chitarra mia. Ruspiti dallo sonno, non più dormire, ruspiti dallo sonno, non più dormire, e non ci dormi qua, e non ci dormi qua, e non ci dormi quando c'ha la bimba male. C'ha bimba mari e non ci dormi quando c'ha bimba mari, un letto di viole, un letto di viole, giri e tu facini. Giro facini, un letto di viole, un letto di viole, giri e tu facini. Materazzelli, cuscini di seta, e i lenzoli sono arrecamati. Arrecamati e li lenzoli sono arrecamati, sono belli l'occhitori, e l'occhitori belli sono i fronni da rulelli, e l'occhitori vivaci sono i fronni rimampati. Robi Lubelli, cantavi da parlare, dava visto in parole, ti lamento li scordare, dava visto in parole, ti lamento li scordare. Io battenti, suona chitarra mia, suona chitarra mia, suoni a battenti, suona chitarra mia, suoni a battenti.